Hello book lovers, my name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. So it has been a while. Some of you may have seen the brief update video that I posted. It's like a minute and a half long, but basically what it comes down to is I had a really terrible mental health crisis. I'm still kind of recovering from it. I have really bad days sometimes, but my medication was adjusted, so I'm doing a little bit better. At any rate, I actually don't feel depressed today, so I can actually record things. Hopefully. I'll be honest though, I just went into this wanting to record today, and I'm feeling things out as I go along. So I try to open my videos by stating what I am drinking and what I'm reading. I guess today won't be any different. I am drinking coffee from my festive mug. It's the only festive mug I had, so I decided to use it for the video. As far as what I'm reading, basically fuck all. I've been in a huge reading slump the entire time that I've been having a depressive episode. And yeah, recently I restarted my Hunger Games cycle. I have no idea how many times I have read this book at this point. This go around though, I think it's 3 in a row, like the series 3 times in a row. I have no idea why, but it scratches an itch in my brain and kind of helps me come out of a funk, so shout out to Hunger Games! That being said, we are going to talk about some of my favorite books that I read in 2023. I am excluding rereads from that list, so let's say I reread Lord of the Rings this year, which I did. I can't include that on the list, even though it's one of my favorite trilogies. Same goes with the Hunger Games. Can't make the list, no matter how much I love it. So starting this off, it was a bit of a Riley Sager year for me. I read, I think, 5 different Riley Sager books at least, only one of which didn't make the list, I think. I enjoy Riley Sager for different reasons. I resisted the Riley Sager hype for quite a while. But the fact is, his books are either so ridiculous that I'm having a good time or interesting enough that they are keeping me invested. Either way, I win. Are you going to find some kind of cerebral masterpiece by reading Riley Sager? Probably not. Will it potentially help you get through a hard time, like mentally? Possibly. Either way, I enjoyed all of the books of his that I read this year, except for the only one left was very weak to me because it felt like it was inspired heavily by Verity in some cases, and I'm extremely anti-Colleen Hoover at this point, and thought that Verity was very, yeah, it was just mid, you know, it was fine. The Riley Sager books that I did enjoy though were Survive the Night, Final Girls, The House Across the Lake, and The Last Time I Lied, I believe is the name of the last one. Yes, The Last Time I Lied. If you want something that you don't have to take terribly serious but will still, you know, keep you engaged, that's, you know, a little bit ridiculous and silly sometimes, any of those 4 will do. Another book trilogy that fits this description that I started my year off with was the Finlay Donovan trilogy by Elle Cosimano. I believe that's how you pronounce her name, not positive. It has a very similar feel. Definitely not one that you want to take too seriously. It's just kind of absurd situation after absurd situation, but you also kind of want to stay engaged to see what happens with these characters. All around just a fun time. My love for Stephen Graham Jones was also cemented this year, of course, with My Heart is a Chainsaw and its sequel, Don't Fear the Reaper, both of which I highly enjoyed and recommend. Honestly, thus far, anything Stephen Graham Jones is a hit. I haven't read one of his books that I walked away feeling like, that was fine, I guess. No, loved all of them thus far, definitely recommend his work. The Only Good Indians was also very good. You know, this little book that I'm sure you haven't heard of. No, it's everywhere. But yeah, definitely recommend Stephen Graham Jones if for some reason you haven't given his books a try yet. My Heart is a Chainsaw, there was so much hype behind that book. but it's one of those instances where I feel like the hype was justified. An author that I actually discovered this year was Simone St. James. She wrote The Sundown Hotel and the Book of Cold Cases. Those are the two that I read this year, and I actually really enjoyed them. She does have more of a supernatural element to her work, but it is also a murder mystery type vibe. At the beginning of this year especially, I was looking for some escapism through mystery, and then that kind of happened again in the summer as well. But yeah, I did enjoy her books. I'm trying to find others, like I'm trying to track down more of her stuff. If you know anything else by her that's particularly good, please feel free to recommend it in the comments. I read 2 Grady Hendrix books this year, which was a surprise because I thought I had read them all other than his newest book, but apparently not. One of them was Horror Store, which absolutely horrifying in some aspects, absolutely horrifying, but also fascinating. And then there was also his newest one, How to Sell a Haunted House, which is my favorite of his books thus far. I'm pretty sure at this point I have caught up and read all of his books. Not 100% positive, but don't hold me to that. But yeah, How to Sell a Haunted House. And I think part of what I loved so much about that book was that it gave me T. Kingfisher vibes, and she is one of my absolute favorite authors, so I am immensely biased when it comes to her work. I also looked into Paul Tremblay's work for the first time with the Pallbearers Club. This is another one that got so much hype. Relatively justified. I'm not going to say that it is the best book that I've ever read, but it was in like the 4.5 star range, and I did really enjoy it, and did think that he had a very creative twist, you know, on the vampire lore. It's going to sound ridiculous, but in some cases it really reminded me of the Nicolas Cage movie Vampire's Kiss. And I know that is probably the last thing that you would want to hear when it comes to reading a book about vampires, if you know about that movie. But yeah, I thought it was interesting how he took that and, I don't know, made it a little more interesting. Not that I don't love Vampire's Kiss. It's an absolute delight. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Perfect for Halloween season, but who cares? My hat is very slowly giving up, and I'm curious to see how long it's gonna last. The next book was a bit of a deviation. It's I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. It was a nonfiction autobiography of sorts, and delved into some very dark subject matter, like, you know, abuse, eating disorders, things that you definitely need to look up the triggers for before reading it. Oh, there she goes. My head is too big for a Santa hat. So we're just gonna do the rest of this without a hat. I don't know if you can tell, but I have red lint all in my hair, all over my jacket from that hat. The next book was one that was recommended to me by a lot of people, but in particular by my girlfriend Heather, and I generally try to give the books that she suggests to me a try because she has good taste. It's This Is How We Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal Motar, I believe is how the name is pronounced. This one was absolutely heart-wrenching. Read it if you want to have your heart broken. I really loved it, that it had kind of a spy versus spy feel to it at sometimes, but it just, I don't have the words to describe it. It's one of those books, absolutely delightful. It is also queer friendly. Give it a read if you haven't yet. It's not even super long, and it's pretty easy to find the audiobook. This next book was rather unexpected. I just started watching a series with my mom and then found out later that it was a book and decided to read it. It is The Last Thing That He Told Me by Laura Dave. I'm not going to say that it is the best thing that I've ever read, but it was up there with the other things that I've read this year. It was definitely a unique concept and kept me engaged. Maybe it's just because I don't read these, historically, I don't read these types of books a lot, and I'm just kind of starting to dip my toes into the water this year. But to me, it felt pretty unique. I had a lot of fun twists and turns, and it kept me intrigued to the very end. So, you know, do with that what you will. Next book was one of my absolute favorites for the year. It was What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I adore Kate Alice Marshall's books. Like, everything I've read by her, I've enjoyed so far. I actually intended to read more of her work this year, like specifically in October, and it just didn't happen because I wasn't mentally cognizant enough to read much anything, honestly. But yeah, I really enjoy her books. If you haven't read any of them, I definitely recommend them. This one is no exception. I really enjoyed it, definitely recommend it. This next book was actually an art. It was Fat Witch Summer by Lizzie Ives. It is a graphic novel, and it is queer-friendly, fat-friendly, and also it's witchy. Like, it has wonderful representation, and it's honestly just delightful. I don't get into summer reads very often, like books that are specifically summery, but this is one that I would recommend if you are looking for a non-typical summer read. Another interesting author that I discovered this year was Gillian McAllister. The first book that I read by her was Wrong Place, Wrong Time. This was definitely my favorite of her two works. The other one was Just a Missing Person. Wrong Place, Wrong Time, though, I thought it had a truly unique concept, and I think it's going to be one of my new favorite books. I definitely want to reread it at some point. And at any rate, I do look forward to anything else that Gillian McAllister puts out, and I really hope that she continues this trend of putting out unique, interesting books. This next book should have been the first on the list. I don't know why it wasn't, because my husband wrote it. It's The Trauma by David Buchanan. This book, other than his actual child, is his baby. It was a work of love. He just put his sweat, tears, and blood into it. Absolutely impressive work. It took him about a year, I think, to accomplish. It's a book of poetry about his trauma and how he has coped with it. It also has to do with grieving and just the little hurdles that life throws at us, and how he has coped with it. And I'm so fucking proud. I can't even tell you how proud I am of this. I am not gonna cry on camera again. It's not gonna happen. But yeah, if you haven't read it, which I don't think a lot of people have, you should go check it out. It's Thanks for the Trauma by David Buchanan. Yeah, can't express how much I love him, and how proud I am. Moving on to something that's not going to make me cry. The next author that I checked out was Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who wrote the Inheritance games. This series was so hyped up. It was absolutely everywhere for ages. You could not log on to BookTube, BookTok, Bookstagram, any of those without seeing this book series. So that is a lot of hype. I did really enjoy it. I do feel like it was slightly overhyped, but it's still absolutely worth the read, especially if you have been looking for a new series to get into that you can just, you know, really take a piece out of. People compare it a lot to Knives Out, which I think is fair, especially for the first book in the series. It does kind of become a little more action-oriented as the books go along, but not in a way that particularly bothers me. Like, at one point there's a chess game. Like, there is a chess game with really high stakes, and I just love crap like that, where people take really basic games that seem innocent and make it into something, you know, tense or insidious. Also had a bit of an Adam Silvera year. The First One to Die was a prequel to They Both Die at the End, and was equally heartbreaking. I don't know why. It's like, I know how this is gonna go. And I also read What If It's Us and Here's to Us, which was also written by Becky Albertalli. I enjoyed both of those books as well. Definitely agree that they do deserve the little bit of hype that they get. They are for like a YA audience, so keep that in mind. But they're also queer friendly and just adorable. Another series that I read this year was the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. This is another one of those where I saw it all over the place. I didn't actually know what it was about, but the moment that I started reading the first book, I was like, oh yeah, this does it for me. And yeah, I believe it is still YA, but I ate those books up one after the other. I think I did it in like 2 or 3 days time, tops, because I just got so into them. Another trilogy was by Brenna Thumler. It was the Lights trilogy. It is a graphic novel series, actually, that circulates around a girl and her best friend who happens to be a ghost, but it's just the right amount of kind of melancholy and cuteness. This next book is actually a kid's book. It's Bean the Stretchy Dragon by Ari Stokrate, and it's so cute. Just the illustrations alone are adorable. And I know that a lot of people on BookTube don't necessarily watch the videos for things like kids' books and middle grade novels. But I love that shit. That's my bread and butter. It's not the main thing that I read. I would say that horror and mystery at this point are maybe my main things. But yeah, I still love them, and that's one of the main things that I read on NetGalley. Those are a lot of the arcs that I get. And yes, actually, both of those were arcs. I read the entire Light trilogy as arcs, and also Being the Stretchy Dragon. But yeah, they're fairly new. Definitely give them a try if you have anyone in your life who might enjoy those, or if you just happen to like cute kids books. Another book that I really enjoyed this year was All Hallows by Christopher Moore. Is it Christopher Moore? Okay, I'm incorrect. It's Christopher Golden, not Christopher Moore. That is a different author entirely who does comedy books. Ezra is here and wants to say hello. This is what we're doing now. Yeah, I don't need my hands or anything. Yeah, that's fine. You good? Nope. Oh, okay. You just can't get comfortable, can you? You poor thing. There's not a lot left, so I'm going to try and get through this, even though Ezra is now the star of the video. The next book is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. Very dark book. Hi, honey. Oh my goodness. Thank you. You're being so sweet. Definitely don't go into this one if you are feeling a little bit sensitive or are in a rough state of mind, because it is a dark read and can go so dark at times. This is one where you want to look up the triggers ahead of time. Please do that. This next one was one that I actually had not heard of before. It's called When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. A lot of people have compared it to Get Out, apparently, which I can definitely see. And I think that it is actually kind of an important book that people should check out if they can. Ezra apparently does not think that this is important, but I do. This next one might be a surprise to some people who have paid attention to my videos in the past couple of years. It's The Outsider by Stephen King. I kind of swore off Stephen King for maybe 6 months or so. After I read it, I was feeling very bitter and resentful towards him. I think I gave that book maybe 2 stars. It has good content in it, but overall, I just don't recommend it. It's a slog, and it's kind of miserable to read. I also read 2 R.F. Kuang books this year, Babel and Yellowface. I loved both of them. That's why they are on my favorites list for the year. Of the 2, though, I think I preferred Yellowface, even though Babel probably got more hype in the book community. This next one is probably part of the reason that I stopped reading for a little bit. It was a mixture between mental health issues, starting to write about, oh, bye Ezra, and the fact that I started reading the Heartstopper series and watching the show. I kind of became obsessed with it for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of a special interest now. I'm not gonna say it's not a kind of embarrassing special interest at times. Like my stepdaughter says, it's weird that you like this thing that people my age like. But it's so delightful, and I feel like part of the reason that I love it so much is it's something that I wish had existed when I was her age. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it has all the good feels while also tackling some important issues. The show, also very good. I feel like they can be very different at times, but I love them both equally, just, you know, in different ways for different reasons. The next book is The Bewitching of Evelyn Jones by Phil Hicks. I read The Haunting of Evelyn Jones, I believe, before this. It quickly became one of my favorite books. This is probably in that category as well. It is also middle grade. I don't care. I absolutely loved it. It has wonderful fall vibes, you know, if that is something that you are looking for. Another surprise for me this year was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I was just poking around on Libby, saw this book, thought it sounded interesting, put it on. And yeah, I thought it was extremely well done. I'm not going to say there aren't some predictable elements, but I thought that it was done in a way which was very effective. And it also scratched that mystery itch, which I had for so much of the year. Hello everyone, future me here. I actually forgot to mention another book. Well, it's not so much that I forgot as that I didn't know if I should count it, but I'm going to because I can. It's An Ode to Being a Kid on the Road by Marty Rogers. It's actually a book that my younger sibling wrote. And I'm so extremely proud. The reason that I wasn't sure is because it's immensely short, but I don't care. It's also not really something that you can find on bookshelves. You can only really find it in specific spots in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I wanted to show off my sister's art just a little bit, so there you go. An Ode to Being a Kid on the Road. The last book on the list is actually another arc. It's Heavy is the Head by Samoya Anagoye. It's a book of poetry, and it leans towards the darker side of things, but talks about some extremely important issues, and I would recommend looking it up. It should be available now, if I remember correctly, because I read it about halfway through the year. Some honorable mentions for the year are Legends and Lattes, 5 Survive, Dark Works, The Family Game, The Writing Retreat, The 7-Year Slip, and My Heart in Braille. Oh, I also forgot to add In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, and Murder on the Links. As you can tell, other than the last couple of months, it was actually a really good reading year for me. I had to take a break a couple of different times, obviously for my mental health and because there have been a lot of things happening with my family the last couple of years. But as far as my reading life goes, I feel like it's been a really good year. I've had a lot of stuff between the 4 and 5 star range, and even 3.5, I feel like that isn't that, like, it's not bad. It's still in the good side of things. But yeah, like 3.5 to 5 stars, there weren't a lot of things that fell in the lower side, and whenever they did, it wasn't because they were actively problematic or terrible or anything like that. They were just kind of boring and meh. I think there's only one book that was actively kind of problematic and landed on that side of things for that reason, and I'm not going to give it further promotion by mentioning it. So that was my list of favorite books from the year 2023. There wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason to this one. I just really wanted to make a video today and figured it would be a good time to kind of wrap up my reading for the year. I really hope that you guys are staying safe out there, that you're taking care of yourselves, and that you're having a happy holiday season. Try to stay warm if you're somewhere where it actually gets cold. Try to remember to wear your masks if you're going to be outside your, like, safety bubble of people. Try to remember. I know it's hard these days and can be kind of uncomfortable, but it's really for everyone's safety. And the same goes for, washing your hands and stuff like that, which people should be doing anyway. Yeah, thank you for watching. It matters to me more than you know, especially when I have had to take so many breaks along the way. Eventually I want to separate this out so that I kind of have seasons, because it seems generally like the summer is the time when I get the least reading done in general. Apparently I'm going to have to account for random mental illness popping in. But yeah, eventually I would like to get to that point where I do have it kind of separated into seasons. If I don't talk to you guys before then I hope that you have a really nice holiday season. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and I wish you all the best. You can like and share and subscribe if you would like to, but I think you know that the most important thing for you to remember is to love yourself. Okay, bye. If I say